You're up at 21. You
Steelers.
got
Steelers.
Is this where Quinn Ewers goes? I mean, maybe
oh,
a Jackson Dart pick. I mean, no,
Oh,
I'm not going to
Jackson.
go that route. I think they go Benjamin Morrison here. Granted, all the medical stuff checks out, but I think they need a DB, and you know how much they like their defense. So I think they go Ben Morrison and slide ends. Granted, if the medicals check out, but um, you talk about a good player. It's risky, but I think it's something that the Steelers need there.
sure. I could see it. I mean, Dante Jackson's a free agent. Uh, Dante Jackson, I think, was their best corner this year. I can say that.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't hate the pick. I do agree. I think as long as he's healthy, he could be a real blue chip talent. So
yeah,
can't go wrong there.
it's a quick one, quick pick there.
And this might, I mean, Mike, you're picking at 22 here. I mean, I don't know if it's a quick pick, but let's hear your take here. Let's see where you go.
I
John
well,
Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh.
yeah, no, exactly. There's so I mean, in my mind, I saw them. I mean, I had someone who already got picked for this pick.
Of course,
Because
it's been happening.
well, I
Yeah.
had someone who already got picked. For this
Abdul Carter.
Yeah.
yeah. No, because
Who had that?
I honestly can see the Chargers maybe trading out of this pick. I mean, because I also thought, I mean, I didn't think he was going to be there. I had Colson Loveland there. I also had Tyler Booker here, just thinking about what Jim Harbaugh wants. But
Sure.
gosh, you guys got me in a goddamn pickle. But you know what? Who I really think they need, especially with you're dealing with an aging Joey Bosa and an aging Khalil Mack, who, I mean, they're going to be coming
Free
up
agent.
on the ends of their
Khalil Mack's a
contract.
free agent. Yeah.
Khalil
Yeah,
Mack's a free agent. I think Bosa actually might be a free agent as well going into next year. We may have to double check that.
I think next
But
year he might be.
next
I
year
think
he might be.
he might
But
be.
I think to shore it up, and this is a Harbaugh pick. I think you go Josiah Stewart out of Michigan, and you pair him back up with Jim Harbaugh, and you put some teeth back on that defensive line because that's where he's going to want to. I think that's where he's going to want to build that team from. Because he builds from the inside out. I think he's a hot commodity, honestly, for a couple of teams. I mean, I was surprised he actually fell this low. But I mean, guy plays with his hair on fire, and I think that's a Michigan man. I think it fits the mold for what Harbaugh's trying to build there. I mean,
So
do you
that's
guys?
your pick. Your pick is Josiah Stewart.
Yeah.
You're gonna rock with that.
We know Christian's taking the pick.
Like I said, my
This
pick
might
for
be.
them.
I think the GM might veto this one. If this is
Yeah,
Harbaugh,
I mean, my
picking,
pick-
maybe.
My
Dude,
pick
I'm
for
gonna
That's a
be
Harbaugh
honest with
pick.
you. I
No.
thought you were close. I thought you were gonna say Kenneth Grant.
Yeah. It was the
I'll
Michigan
draft
factor.
him, bro. I'll draft Josiah right now if you want.
Kenneth Grant he's also a Michigan guy for what it's worth. I would like either one of those. I mean,
Yeah.
I like Harbaugh going Michigan. I think that's as long as he still has his guys coming out in the draft. I think he's going to be looking out for him.
I agree. Okay, fine. Yeah, fine, Christian. Just because you're gonna bully me, pick Kenneth Grant. But yes,
No,
I mean Edge. Edge is.
Josiah is a riser. People are high on Josiah.
We're gonna
Stewart.
have
I'm high on. I'm high.
we're
on
gonna
Josh.
have surprise
The thing
picks.
with me,
You know,
yeah, I could. I mean, if he did it, I mean, Mike, that's your fucking call. If he did it, I would shout you out in a heartbeat. I'm gonna go Kenneth right here. I think Kenneth is the man. I think he fits everything you're saying. Everything
I
you're
agree,
saying.
and I think Josiah does as well. But I mean, you're right. I mean, okay, if Kenneth Grant is there, yes. I mean, I'm sure they will take him. I mean, but yeah, what I was trying to reiterate is that edge is where they're going to need to make the
Sure.
pick at. So,
Now,
and I
now
think if
let
you
me ask
have,
you this: would you re-sign Khalil?
I think it
Depends on the contract, right?
depends. It depends on the contract, but honestly, I think they might move off him. I think you've seen a dip in his productivity. I think if you compare anybody with Nick Bosa, or Nick Bosa,
Joey Bosa.
Joey, yeah.
Joey Bosa,
Yeah.
Joey Bosa, yeah, and I think, yeah, God, you just bullied me into Kenneth Grant, but no, I mean, I agree that it was going to be one of the two, Christian. So
One of Michigan men.
I like the idea of taking the Michigan men
yeah,
for Harbaugh.
and I think it's continuity. I think it's a coach they already know, a scheme they're going to already know, and I think they're going to be plug in, play day one, and be productive.
Now, I'll tell you, Josiah, man, the only thing I don't like is his size. That's the only thing.
The 6'1", yeah,
That's
245 off the edge. I mean, that's
He is
tough in the NFL. That's tough
You
to
look at his
move to.
PFF though. He's balling. 9
He
sacks
does.
in 11 games.
I wonder if we could do a retrospect, like how many defensive ends at 6'1" end up being successful. Like the shortest guy that I can remember that was a baller was like Michael Bennett back in the day
Yeah.
for Seattle. And
Von
he's like the only
Miller,
guy that
that's
really
all
comes to
fine.
mind who's that kind of smaller type guy. Maybe it's because his shoulder pads are so small, but
But
I
I
mean,
also
at edge too. There's so many ways that you can use a guy
Yeah.
off the edge, whether it's as a power rusher, run stopper, true edge rusher.
there are, and
they
I
come in all
also-
shapes and sizes, right?
I would not be surprised if we get to the third round and then they take Josiah Stewart. But I agree
Sure.
with you, Christian. I think
Sure.
Kenneth Grant is the pick of the two. It was kind of
Let's look
between
at
them.
the Chargers. So
Well,
Chargers have- they're at
I think to your
54 and
point though,
86.
Mike, they have questions at the edge spot, right? Whereas it used to be solidified as good as any position for these past few years that they've had Khalil Mack in the renaissance of his career.
Right. Yeah.
So it depends on how they feel with their interior versus their edge. I mean, it's not as simple as just saying take any position along the defensive line. If they're confident that Stewart's going to be the guy to do the job off the edge and to be able to fill in for a guy like Khalil Mack, those are big shoes to fill. Even as Khalil Mack is now, coming up on his on how old is he now? He's got to be coming up on his mid-30s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're going to need an answer post Khalil Mack. And
and I mean,
doing it in this draft
they
is as good
both
as
still
any.
have a year. I think.
No,
Bosa
Khalil Mack's a
is-
free agent.
Yeah, Khalil Mack's a free
Talking
agent.
about
Bosa still
him
has
coming
a
back to the
year,
Bears.
and that's why maybe I jumped the gun. Maybe I jumped.
I don't
the gun.
hate it. There's going to be shock
that's
picks.
your guy for sure. That could definitely be a guy that jumps off. I mean, I didn't see him too much at the Senior Bowl today or this week, but I mean, people have been high on him for a long time.
Yeah.
Christian,
So-
are you picking for the Packers here?
I am picking for the Packers,
Shiloh Sanders. Let's go.
and right now, I guess I would never take Shiloh. I would never draft Shiloh. My guy
Well, I know,
here, though,
but that's
is
the Packers might though. We want the Packers to.
Sure. This man right here, former 5-star, Walter Nolan. Green Bay could go a lot of different ways. I do think Kenny Clark is coming along to that kind of the end of the road here. I've been a fan of Devontae Wyatt, but with the new DC Jeff Hafley, second year in, I think he's going to want his guys. That's part of the reason they traded Preston Smith this past season during the trade deadline. I think Walter Nolan's the pick here. I think he's got a lot of versatility. He could go a lot higher. I could see him anywhere from 11 to 20 get drafted. So if he fell to 23, I think that's a huge pick for him. But yeah, I think right now there's some questions at corner. We don't know the health of Jair Alexander, but I think Walter Nolan can't miss guy here. I would go him all day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the sound of it as a Bears fan, but the Packers, what they do is they just get guys into that defensive line spot. They invest in them, and then as they progress year after year, they seemingly improve. I mean, you've seen it countless times now. They always have that defensive line room loaded, and I think being able to add a guy like Walter Nolan, who, to my mind, it's a shock that he's fallen this far. As I've said before, when you talk about the value and the premium that's been put on interior pass rushers, right? And guys who can put pressure on the quarterback from the interior. Obviously, as a Bears fan, I wouldn't like that the Packers got another top talented defensive lineman at this point in the draft. But it'd be a great pick. I couldn't argue with it, that's for sure.
I'm with them. I see a lot of great things about old Walter.
Yeah. The Vikings are in an interesting spot, right? Because this was a team that was competing for the division at the end of the year and had, by all accounts, a great season. And despite having two of, in my opinion, the most solid offensive tackles on either side between Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw, and the Rams are a talented defensive front. I'll give him that. And Sam Darnold definitely turned into a pumpkin towards the end of the season. But man, for a playoff team that was competing for the division, that interior offensive line looked brutal in that wild card game. That was – they were just leaking like a sieve the whole game. And once again, the Rams' young up-and-coming defensive line is obviously not one you want to be matched up against. But whether they bring back Darnold, which I don't expect, or whether they move on to J.J. McCarthy, if there's one cautionary tale of the Bears this season, it's you absolutely need to solidify that offensive line for a young quarterback. And J.J. McCarthy will essentially be having what amounts to his rookie season after being injured last year. And so I think at this point, you're looking at interior offensive line. You may be looking at a guy like Kelvin Banks, but instead I'm gonna have to move off and take a guy like Donovan Jackson. Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State, true offensive lineman, true interior offensive. I think he'll be moving to guard, and I think that he's guard. He's gonna be a guard. Listed as a tackle here, but he is a guard, and I think being able to solidify that for J.J. McCarthy, get a solid first-round offensive lineman, especially as you're going to start to see a run on them throughout the top half of this draft, whether it's in the first or second round. Every single team in the NFL needs offensive line help. And while I'm sure, there are some, there are some picks that could be made by Brian Flores, or with Brian Flores in mind, to do some fun things with that defense. But before you can make any of those fun picks, you need to have your quarterback and hopefully your franchise quarterback, for the Vikings' sake, protected. And a guy like Donovan Jackson to solidify the interior of that line is exactly what they need.
Okay.
Well, it's not the player who I thought you were going to pick, but I like the analysis for sure. I like Donovan Jackson.
Were you going to go Savanea?
Was I going to go Savanea?
Savanea?
No, I'm. Oh, if we want to pivot to my pick now, we can. I was just going to say, I thought you were going to go Kelvin Banks, to be honest, because he could play both tackle and guard.
He could. He definitely could, but I think taking a true interior offensive lineman. Yeah, he's fallen.
His slide ends here. I'm taking Kelvin Banks for the Texans, and he's gonna play guard. Wow. I'm between Banks and then honestly Matthew Golden was my other guy. I was hoping that you'd pick Banks so I could go on my diatribe about Matthew Golden. I love Matthew Golden's game. Love his game. He's a little bit wiry, but you talk about a guy that gets open, gets separation, very, very good at the point of attack at catching the football. I rarely see him body catch things. He's shifty off the line. He's a great route runner. I would love to have Matthew Golden on our team. I think he's a first round pick for sure. I know that he's kind of a guy who's rising a little bit. I would love to have Matthew Golden, but if Kelvin Banks is there at 25, I think the Texans take him. You slide Kelvin Banks in at guard, and honestly, I would put Kelvin Banks at right guard if he's able, and keep Tyus Howard at left guard, and then that pretty much shores up your interior offensive line. But I wouldn't hate Kelvin Banks at right tackle either, because you really don't know what you got out of Fisher at this point. I think this is more of a BPA for the Texans, best player available, and that's Kelvin Banks, and fills a need for you too. But would I love Matthew Golden at this spot as well. That's who I really wanted to take. But if Kelvin Banks is there at 25, I think that's the right pick. But
I could see the Vikings going Kelvin Banks and keeping your dream alive.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things like it's too tantalizing to pass up a guy like Kelvin Banks at 25, and I think it shores up a lot of. Again, it kind of depends what the Texans do in free agency. They're not a team that really splurges on free agent acquisitions until last year. I don't know if they're going to spend top tier dollar at interior offensive line. Like I don't think they're players for Trey Smith in any way, shape, or form. But again, if you want to play Banks at one of the guard spots, then I'd say go for it. He's probably more comfortable at left guard because he played left tackle, and then you can keep Titus at right tackle, and Blake Fisher can stay as your swing tackle. But this at least shores up, one of your spots. But boy, I was amped up to take Matthew Golden, man. With that diatribe you were going on, I'm like, he's taking Banks, and I can take Golden.
Yeah.
But I just got mic'd there, where the guy that I wanted to take, I kind of got reverse screwed over. Because now I think I gotta take Banks. But yeah, I'm between Banks and Matthew Golden. If Banks is there at 25, that's a good pick for the Texans. So.
All right, here we go, LA.
No qualms.
Yeah,
No qualms from that. I like it.
Honestly,
No,
yeah,
we can address it for a second. I think Kelvin Banks falls that far. It depends on whether you project him at tackle or guard. If you ask Kelvin Banks, he's going to say, "I want to be a left tackle in the NFL."
Yeah.
Because he wants to make the money. I mean, that's
I don't really care
exactly
what Kelvin Banks wants. He's got to do what's best for the Houston Texans, and that's
well, certainly guard. when you fall to 25, you're kind of you're not getting to make those decisions, and you're not going to. Your beggars can't be choosers at that point if you want to be a first round pick. But I don't hate the pick. I mean, again, I think it's all about projections and who's going to be comfortable playing where, and that's really the main reason that I went with Donovan Jackson to be more comfortable in that interior spot that he's played before. But Kelvin Banks is another good pick, and I'm just sorry that I robbed you of the opportunity to take Golden. It could be all part of my master plan, though.
We might do another mock draft, and I might be able to take
Might have to. Yeah. So for the Rams here, give me Quinn Ewers. No, I'm kidding. Actually, no, it's
my eyes lit up.
So they traded Ernest Jones at the beginning of the season. So you're gonna go Troy Reeder, Christian Roseboom. What was the other guy? Spates. Right here. I think the best pick that they could make at this point for him is going to be Demetrius Knight out of South Carolina. Rangy. He had I had him down. He had 82 tackles on the season. The guy can play in coverage. He can rush the quarterback. He only had 2 sacks, only 1 interception. But, it was his only season with the Gamecocks. He played at Georgia Tech. He's got, experience in college football playing on, playing on legitimate teams. And I think his coverage ability is going to be – we saw them in the divisional round. They got absolutely gashed on just medium route passes. I mean, that's you give them a rangy linebacker. I think that's something that plays right into the hands of what they're going to be wanting to do on defense. And they have pass rushers. They have a good defensive line. What they need to do is shore up the linebacker core, and I think Demetrius Knight Jr. Makes sense here for them. And I mean, I'm pretty sure linebacker.
I love that pick, Mike. And another reason I like it is there are people who would want to go Jalen Walker there, and Walker definitely affords you maybe more flexibility as a pass rusher, but that's not what the Rams need, right? Yeah. The Rams with what they've got up front with that young defensive line, they can rush 4 and feel confident. What they need is guys on the back end, the linebacker core. I mean, I think you've seen from that secondary, guys have stepped up and been able to play. Yeah. I think once they're able to solidify from the front to the back, it's the way to build their defense. And I think that it's just another piece to a great ascending young defense. So I like to pick a lot.
I think they need linebacker more than they need a cornerback in the first round is kind of where my head is at for them.
And I think the separator between him and Jalen Walker is exactly the reason to cover on the back end. I mean, Jalen Walker seems more of a blitzing linebacker, in my opinion, maybe playing on that edge. And I think Knight is way more rangy. You look at him; he gives you shades of Dre Greenlaw a little bit. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he could be a home run pick, and I'm interested to see how high he'll go. I really am.
I mean, I think if he falls to LA, you made a damn good pick at 26.
Yeah, certainly. So with Baltimore, I mean, there's a lot of directions I could go here. I'm going to take the former high school running back, Mr. Josh Conerly. I think the big question going into this offseason is what you're going to do with Ronnie Stanley at left tackle, what you're going to do with Patrick McCarry at left guard. I think Josh Conerly gives you the ability to plug and play at one of those positions, depending on who you want to try and keep. And then, as I mentioned, Josh Conerly, former running back in high school, great feet, great balance. I think he could slide into guard if you need him to start his career. But I do think he can hold his own. I'm a big fan of him. I think he can play left tackle for a long time in the NFL. And he can move. I think when you think about what the Ravens want to do, play fast, play on the outside, play on the edge, I think he's perfect for him. And yeah, just established a good protection for Lamar. As long as Derrick Henry's back there, I think that's what they got to do. So Josh Conerly's the pick there.
You just made me wish the Texans picked Josh Conerly at 25. To be honest,
I mean,
I love a tackle or an offensive lineman that's got great feet and is an athlete. You know, I'm watching the Texans. I'm sure you guys are watching the Bears. I feel like some of these offensive linemen have like their feet in quicksand. You know,
sure.
Like I would love to have a guy like Conerly with great feet, and can stay in front of guys. I like that pick a lot.
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing NFL defenses just get lighter and faster every single year, and so you need guys with athleticism on the edge to be able to block the blind side. I love the pick for the Ravens, and it's just going to be, when you have a valuable piece and that's putting it lightly when you talk about Lamar Jackson, you want to protect him. You got to make sure he's protected. And if you have any questions on the offensive line, you need to double down and protect that asset.
Right.
So if we move on to the next pick, I had to pick for the Vikings, and now I have to pick for the Detroit Lions as a Bears fan. And I maybe Vikings fans didn't like Jackson over Kelvin Banks, but I think that the Lions fans, after seeing the Senior Bowl, after seeing some film on this guy, you're gonna love Mike Green. Mike Green's a pick. I think he's a great pick for the Lions right here. You see the twitchy athleticism, the ability to get to the quarterback. Some questions, obviously, coming from Marshall, but once again, when you see the performance at the Senior Bowl, you see him absolutely dominating. This is a guy who I think can be under the radar and is going to fly up draft boards. I think there's a very realistic possibility he could go higher than this. But if he falls here to the Lions with the questions that they've had along their defense just being so injured last year, I mean, it was hard to get a good read on how great that defense actually is. But you can't go wrong taking a young, twitchy edge rusher. Yeah. I think it's a Brad Holmes pick. I think he's got that Lions grit demeanor to him. I think he'd fit right in on that Lions team with Dan Campbell. And I may not like it as a Bears fan. He may give me fits. May be coming after Caleb Williams. But got to make the pick for, you got to make the best pick for your team. I got to be doing this in good faith. And so for the Lions, I think Mike Green is the pick here. And once again, I think, James Pierce, he's fallen down this board. But you got to answer some questions about stopping the run, right? And being able to put on the weight to do that and what it's going to do to his pass rushing ability. So I know there's some people that are going to think, why not James Pierce? But I like what I've seen from Mike Green. I think the attitude is a fit, and I think that everything about this makes sense for the Lions at this point.
Pat, I'm right with you on that one. Honestly, it was a kind of a toss-up between him and Jack Sawyer, just because he kind of has like the motor, like the Dan Campbell, rip a head off kind of just motor to him. But I mean, I like the pick. I think if they're going between the two, I think Mike Green is right up there. But I mean, I like the pick. I think Sawyer is also a very viable pick right there for just kind of who they are.
They're both Lions picks. They're definitely both Lions picks. That's for sure. But I think we could all agree we're off James Pierce, huh? We're all off him.
He has fallen.
He's not going.
You need to be multidimensional. You need to be multidimensional.
He's in the green room for sure.
Yeah, there's always one guy that gets stuck in the green room, and it looks like it's James Pierce this time around. Because with the Commanders pick, I'm going with Siobhan Revel, corner, East Carolina. He's at the Senior Bowl. Look, you talk about a rangy guy, good speed. Marshawn Lattimore, obviously not the best of showings in the playoffs. Older guy.
Look at that size.
Healthiness. Yeah, he is very rangy, 6'3", 193. He's a very rangy guy. The one thing that I don't love about him is he kind of struggles with pad level, but other than that, I mean, he can go out there and cover, and we've seen that at the Senior Bowl. I would like this pick for Washington a lot. I think if you walk out there with again, Sanders still, he was solid as a rookie. Obviously got picked on a little bit as well against Philadelphia. But I don't think you can run it back with Lattimore and Sanders still and feel comfortable. I think getting one more young buck in there would do this defense wonders. And Siobhan Revel seems like a good fit there, just based off his people remember Dan Quinn was the DC for the Seahawks, and that's when he had Richard Sherman and Brandon Browner and those guys. He likes those long type of corners, those tall corners with long arms. I think Revel's a perfect fit for that type of defense.
I got 2 questions here. A, was it at all close for you between Ravel and Matt Golden here for Washington?
Oh, I thought about Matt Golden for sure, but the reason why I went with Revel is I think no matter who you trot out there, Jane Daniels he had success with De'Ami Brown towards the end of this year. So it's one of those things. I mean, they could probably address receiver later in the draft. I feel like this is more of a premium for them to get a corner than it is, to get another weapon. So I mean, I think they addressed that in rounds 2 and 3 probably. But I think Revel makes sense. Yeah.
And my second question is, I think they have a team option on Lattimore this offseason. Would you let him walk, or would you try to keep him around?
It depends on how much money that option is worth, in my opinion. I don't know what exactly the team option is and what, how much that counts against the cap. That might be something we can look up on Spot Rack and maybe talk about a different time. But it's one of the, it's definitely a money thing. And you gave up draft capital to get Lattimore, which I think is what they give up, a 3rd round pick, I think. Yeah. So, I mean, that's that's not looking like the shrewdest of moves right now. I get it at the time, but yeah, I maybe if the team option makes sense for cap purposes, then yeah, but I still think even if you bring Lattimore back, taking Revel's a good pick.
I think, yeah, 18 million, 2025.
Yeah. Oh, I don't like that. I do not like the 18 million number there for an aging player that can't stay healthy.
Maybe they can rework it. Maybe they can rework it.
Yeah, he seems like a
Either way,
reasonable guy. He seems like a chill guy who would be down to rework it. No questions about his temper, his attitude.
Oh, I don't think he's getting 18 million on the open market. I'll say that. So I mean, that's one of those things you might just decline it, and if you can get him back on a cheaper deal, you can get him back on a cheaper deal. Or rework it. I don't know, but yeah, I even if they bring him back, I still think you take Revel here.
Oh, dude.
On to Mike.
This one
The
has
last pick for Mike, Buffalo.
No, this one has absolutely because there's a lot of needs on the defensive line for the Bills right now, and I'm trying to think where are you gonna get the best player available, but where are you also gonna get the best production right away, because you're gonna have I think where we saw that they had issues was, pass rush. But mother, God bless it. You know what?
He's in knots over this pick right now.
He's been in a twister. He's been in a twister.
I'm in a twister. But no, here's.
As soon as he realized he couldn't get Abdul Carter at 6, he was
absolutely
or Tyler.
Let's hear it.
14.
And I wanted Jahdae Barron here, for the Bills, but I think if you're thinking what they really need, I like Walter Nolan here.
Walter Nolan got picked.
Walter Nolan got picked. Okay, then. Yeah. Give me JT.
He's a Packer.
Yeah, give me JT Tiamowalu.
Okay.
And it just in terms of what they need right now and what they have right now is great. But Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, I mean, we've seen injuries to them at that position. I think he's coming off a great season. I think if you're getting him as one of the last picks in the first round for a defense that, you're gonna beef up your defense to stop Mahomes. How are you gonna do that? You light him up. That's a guy I think that they can bring in. He makes some differences for him. 6'5", 269, like right off the edge. I think you're going to be learning from a lot of guys that have been there and can make you a better player, and I think it's good for him.
Mike, one question for you is why not Nick Scorton or James Pierce here? I mean, if you talk about from a talent perspective, it seems like James Pierce would be the pick. Why JT, Tuimoloau over those guys?
I mean, I just thought he, goes back to school another year, goes and wins a national championship. It's you get a whole another year of experience in that, but it could go. I mean, I'm just talking about what they need is an edge rusher, and I mean, I thought he was a better player available.
Yeah, and I mean, I think to your point too, Mike, on this, when you talk about a guy like James Pierce, what is Sean McDermott going to be looking for in his defense? He's going to be looking for somebody who can do it all, who can stop the run, who can rush the passer. JT Tuimoloau has fallen a bit, has slipped a bit as a prospect, but when you talk about a guy with a lot of buzz around him before this season, someone like Sean McDermott having faith in the ability to turn it around for him and seeing something in him that others can't. I mean, Sean McDermott's made a career out of doing that. So
Yeah.
I don't hate the pick.
The
Talk about
OSU
the
guy.
talent.
They just have it. They have so many positions on that aging defensive line to address. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you make a wrong pick picking, what Turtle said. I mean, just about anybody. I mean, I just thought, going with edge, and I mean that's kind of where you have the age kind of creeping in for them.
Just a weird spot too for a team with a need at edge rusher to be picking, just based on the fact that in this draft, edge is it's deep. I guess I don't know. I put it in quotes because these players can be so hit or miss, right? And
yeah,
I do think
selecting the right one is going to be key. So if it comes down to something like character or picking the guy with the correct intangibles, and if that's JT Tuimoloau, that's who it is.
You are also picking in Buffalo. Not everybody can play in Buffalo, which is a big deal. I mean, the thing that sticks out with JTT is obviously that cold weather game versus Tennessee, where they were cracking shit. They literally cracked Nico's helmet like 3 times.
Yeah.
So hey, if they see, hey, this guy can play in the cold weather, doesn't bother him at all, I could totally see him being a pick to Buffalo specifically. That would make a ton of sense. But honestly, I could see a case for all 3 of those Ohio State guys. I mean, whether it's Jack Sawyer, JTT, or Tyleik Williams, I could see all 3 of them end up in Buffalo. Because you see the similarities between playing at Columbus and playing in Buffalo. I think same type of atmosphere, same weather at times, conditions. So I like a pick a lot from a kid from Ohio State for sure. I could totally see it.
And who was I going to say? I mean, the thing is, Daquan Jones is also getting up there in age too. So I mean, if they go Walter Nolan, I mean, but they're also going to be able to make a pick in the second round, and I think he may be there as well. I think you have a better. I think you come out better on this side taking an edge rusher like Tuimoloau. I can't say his name for anything.
Yeah, JTT. We'll call him JTT.
JTT. Yeah, I mean that's a tough spot to be in because I mean you almost just made it to the Super Bowl. So
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, you're kind of you're putting a Band-Aid on just a little scrape. So
yeah.
What's going to beat Patrick Mahomes?
I'm sure the Bills fans appreciate you reminding them that they almost made it to the Super Bowl again. That's a nice little medal for them to wear that they can, I'm sure, be proud of, and that they're not absolutely sick of at this point.
Yeah, Texans almost made it, right, Turts?
No, they did not almost make it. They were a couple, ball bouncing the right way and then beating the Bills in Buffalo away. Probably neither of those happening, but we're on the ups.
All right. So last pick for me, I'm picking for Philadelphia, assuming they lose. A lot of different directions here that they could go in. There's a couple of guys that I really like a lot. I'm just going to shout them out real quick, I guess. So for me, I mean, it makes a lot of sense for them to go Derek Harmon. I think Derek Harmon has the size. He has all the tools. He had a great year. You put him next to Jalen Carter, that's pretty scary. I know Milton Williams is also a free agent. So I'm thinking about him, Derek Harmon. And then I'm also thinking about Mr. Nick Emanwari at safety, 6'3", 227, runs like a gazelle. I mean, he could be really good. He could be the next B. Dawkins. So those are the two guys that it's tough for me to choose between right now. I could both see them as first round picks. I could see Emin as the number one safety off the board, honestly. But Reed Blankenship is a free agent. CJ GJ is getting older. I believe in Jalen Carter. I think he likes playing with Jordan Davis. I got to go Nick Emin here. That was your pick?
That was gonna be my pick for the Chiefs and Spags. I thought I was gonna come up with something novel.
And that's
but
really,
hey,
yeah,
I've got a backup plan. Don't worry, I've got a backup plan that nobody's gonna like.
I mean, that's
nobody
the
but
big
the
concern.
Chiefs.
That's the big concern here. Is
give me the Emin. Say what I was about to say about Emin and why it would be such a good fit.
I mean,
damn,
he's an elite. I think he's going to be really good. I mean, he's my favorite safety. I love Xavier Watts. I love Malachi.
But he's a true strong safety, right? I mean, if you're going to delineate between a free safety and a strong safety, this is a guy who he can play. Double high. Yeah. He can play cover two if you need him to. But this is a guy that you can put in the box and he's going to feel right at home.
He reminds me a lot of Cam, and I think he's going to be really good. He's going to whatever team he goes to, he's going to be able to basically be that nickel linebacker if you want him to be. Man, I just can't say enough good things about Nick, man. But
yeah, damn. I didn't know that anyone was going to pick Nick Emin. I was so ready to be able to pull that one out on you guys. But that was going to be – I was only going to be taking Nick Emin for the Chiefs if nobody took Matthew Golden. Put Matthew Golden on this Chiefs team with Andy Reid, and this is another one where you just take him, take the athlete.
I hate that. Such a luxury. Later. Such a luxury.
And I was going to say this is when I realized I had the Chiefs, I knew I was going to be in this position because they're in it every year where it's like, damn, you got the last pick in the first round. But it's a nice luxury because there's always going to be somebody that falls, right? And the Chiefs have been able to reload and restock and, reinvent themselves. And part of that has been nailing some of these picks towards the end of the first round. It's a little redundant after taking Xavier Worthy last year, but I think the more you load up on weapons for Patrick Mahomes, they have the offensive line for the most part solidified. Obviously, Trey Smith, it's up in the air whether he's going to be brought back. They can't pay everybody. But, yeah, Matthew Golden is, like you said, Turtle, it's a luxury pick, but they're not going to apologize for taking him and just getting another one of maybe the best athlete at wide receiver off the board.
You just slide him into where Marquise Brown's playing right now, and you call it a day.
Exactly.
Marquise Brown's going to be a free agent, so you
put him in an offense that with Andy Reid's offense, there are going to be so many things that they're able to do.
Oh God,
ways that they can stretch the field with Worthy
and Rashee Rice, man.
Worthy, Golden, and Rashee Rice is going to be, as Jonathan Gannon would say,
that's pew pew pew
missiles. It's going to be pew 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 lasers, and I think that the Chiefs
shots explosives.
So there it is.
There's our first round mock. I mean, any surprises here? I'm sure there's a couple.
James Pierce not being picked.
Pierce not being picked. I think a lot of people have Jalen Walker.
Jalen
going
Walker
off the board at some point as a linebacker.
I thought about him at Philadelphia. I'm not going to lie with all the Georgia connects, but
it just seems redundant. They're like the same player. Him and Nolan Smith are like the same guy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
kind of
interesting.
There were a couple of guys. There were a couple of guys that were just 1A, 1B at some of those picks for the same position.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think it's emblematic that the draft that we've got. The league is won and lost in the trenches, right?
Absolutely.
And when you see other teams in your division loading up on defensive linemen along their defensive front, that's going to lead you to then invest in your offensive line. I mean, like I said, there's no greater cautionary tale for making sure that your offensive line is in order when everything else looks great than the Chicago Bears. And what almost happened, Caleb Williams was almost ruined just by the fact that he couldn't process. He couldn't stay upright. He was getting, I think he got sacked like the third most times in NFL history. It was something crazy.
And we got the Browns taking Abdul Carter at 2. I mean, I'm thinking about the best thing for the organization, not everyone getting fired the next year. So